in studio. Kevin Hastings. Well, I'm live in studio. Tom Centofanti is live and in studio, and Hunter is just spending his quarantine time all types of wrong. Tommy.
Yeah.
Every time we look up, he's somewhere he probably shouldn't be, but he's got his sunglasses on, his hat. I'm pretty sure you can't wear a hat in those establishments, Hunter. Turn around backwards.
All I gotta say is I slipped him an extra 10.
Okay. Okay. So you're good, Hunter. Well, want to
I'm good.
welcome everybody on the show today. I'm going to run down the hall and check sounds and links while you guys kind of touch base on what all was going on in the world of sports. College football is it looks like canceling left and right. We'll see what's going to happen with that. So with that said, Hunter, welcome to the show. Don't spend all your ones in one place, or now $2 bills in one place.
Oh, we're gonna do exactly that. But I think I'll move back to the office space right now. Tom, how are you doing today? It is the start of a new week.
Not real well. Big Ten canceled their football today, so it's just kind of depressing. Don't know what to say, but I guess it is what it is. I mean, a lot of people saw this coming. I don't think the Pac-10's officially canceled yet, but I could see them canceling pretty soon. I think the SEC will be your holdout for the longest period of time. They'll hold out, but just real depressing. Just can't get over this stuff, and we're losing more and more, every single day. So that's just my depressing news of the day, Hunter.
I'm not shocked by it. I'm not surprised by it at all. If colleges move that way, I don't think it's just the coronavirus at all that caused this. I think the Big Ten and the Pac-12, establishment-wise, has been shaken up a little bit with the rise of what looks to be a players' union. There's obviously not a name for it right now, but to me, that's what it looks like it's going to be. I think the SEC and the ACC still get it in, even though Trevor Lawrence has expressed, his how he feels about the situation as well. He's siding almost with the Pac-12 and the Big Ten players as well. You're going to see that more and more. It just comes down to which conferences are going to play. And to me, if this is the case, Big Ten's backing down, Pac-12's back down, or assumed to back down. To me, I don't see why SEC and the ACC don't do a joint season. I don't see why they don't compete with each other. Well, I mean, that's, of course, excluding the Big 12 because they haven't decided anything. But, I mean, seriously, if the Big 10's going to back down and the Pac-12 is, but the ACC and the SEC and the Big 12 continue to go on, why not just play each other? Just play each other.
I guess it just remains to be seen. I mean, I guess there'd be some logistical issues maybe, getting transportation arranged and everything, but it's just going to be just a sad fall without college football on Saturday the way it ought to be. I mean, do you have a national championship this way? I mean, I guess the team still playing can play for a national championship.
I hate to be the Debbie Downer of you guys, but if the NFL plays, I won't miss a beat here.
Yeah. Oh, I know you know.
But
I'll say this, though,
I wish they would have made the decisions earlier, like we talked about. If you would have, Tom, if they would have just said a month ago, hey, we're going to play in the spring, we wouldn't have to deal with the expectations. I always have the lowest expectations, and you can always be nothing but impressed or excited about it. So they could have done this months ago. I just hope they don't do it for the love of the sport and they do it for the safety of the game, what's best for the students. Kind of talked about a little bit last week, Tom. Should they even allow walk-ons to play on these football teams now? Each team has about 100, 110 people on the roster. Should they even allow the guys, those 50 guys that aren't never going to get to play, or should they even be out there practicing, walking on? Washington State, they had a starter who said he's not going to play, and they told him he can't come practice anymore. He's basically been cut from the team. He can come to school. So, as far as if we're talking about safety and schooling, those kids need to be in school anyway. They're not going to the NFL. So you guys go to school, right? If that's what we're doing. But it seems like we contradict ourselves on whether we want to do what's right, what's safe, or what's best for the game, depending on whose pocketbook is affected.
I think their scholarships are protected,
Right.
are they not?
They should be,
their
yeah.
scholarships are protected. So, I mean, it's a case-by-case decision. I was reading about a few players that had decided in the Big Ten. A kid from Michigan State had a respiratory illness in the past. He decided not to play. Another member of the team had a family member die of the coronavirus. He decided not to play out of his own safety. So, I mean, there's stories like this across the nation that, if you're susceptible, if you've had family issues, so on and so forth. I mean, like you say, Kevin, you do get your scholarship, but it's not like you're making a multi-million-dollar salary to take, not only your life, but somebody else's life. And I guess that I have to respect the decision of anybody who decides not to play. But I think more's coming down. We still don't know where we are in the state of North Carolina as far as high school athletics. As we're not.
Yeah.
We don't even know what we're going to do. I mean, South Carolina's going to start on the 24th, but I guess that'd be up in the air. I mean, they had a school down in Georgia. Went back to school, weren't following the guidelines, and I think they had 8 or 9 kids get the coronavirus in a week. So
what if you're one of these kids that's deciding on whether to go to South Carolina or not? When do you make that decision? If you're going to go, or because you wait around too long, whether you should play or not, you wait around too long, the state's going to make that decision for you, and you might not even get to play. Or if you play in South Carolina in the spring, in the fall, can you play in the spring if North Carolina plays?
Yeah.
I've got that question to be answered, and nobody has any answers across the board on anything.
No, I heard this. He's not gonna. He will remain unnamed. I did talk to an assistant coach for that I know from one of the high schools in the area, and I asked him. I just straight out asked him. I said, "What do you think?" He said, "It's not gonna happen." And he was just blunt with me.
What's not going to happen?
The high school athletics. He said, "I don't." Yeah. He said, "I don't." Yeah, he said, "I don't see it happening." He said they're waiting too long.
Yeah.
And eventually it's just going to get. Yeah, we've said that for weeks, and I think he hit it right on the head. He said, "I just don't see it happening because," and it was basically a lot of the stuff that we've said. That it's football. They're rubbing up on each other. They're touching each other. And they're not pros. They're not getting paid. This is different between the professionals. So, and like I said, I'm not going to say who it was, but he just I just asked him. I said, just give me your honest opinion. He said, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And I think more than anything, it is because nobody can just make a split decision. Nobody can just say, okay, this is what's happening and we're rolling with it. We've said it for weeks. You've got 3 decisions here. Play, move it to the spring, or cancel. It's one of those 3. We don't need to just keep jumbling up in the air. If you're waiting to see what happens to everybody else, then you're going to be waiting too late. That's really what's going to happen. Like if you're looking around, seeing, let's see how South Carolina does. Let's see how Virginia does. Let's see how some of these other local states do if they are playing the season right now. And then we'll make a decision. Well, that could be 3 or 4 weeks too late. And it's like, these kids are only going to get to play 6 games this season. And then is it really worth it?
Yes.
And so that's what everybody has to really think about. If you can't just make a decision now, because if you go ahead and decide now, okay, we're going to move the season to the spring, then everybody can go ahead and start making plans on, okay, well, we're going to start having practices on this day, and we're going to go ahead and start getting the schedules drawn up, and it's going to start here, here, and here. And you kind of get a jump start on it, and you're ahead of the curve, and everything's ready to go by the spring. Right now, with you trying to fly by the seat of your pants, nothing's going to happen. Nothing at all. And that's why I kind of agree that I think they're just waiting. I think it's just too late at this point to try and get a football season in. I know that's crazy, but if you were going to shorten it anyways, then why would you not just move it to the spring?
Well, because of like we talked about, the other things you're going to run into. You're going to run into the spring sports and facilities and blah, blah, blah. It's not impossible. I mean, you could do it, especially with a shortened season. It would just be a lot more difficult to have everything in the springtime.
Well, here's the thing. If they just are canceling football, though, then they'll just cancel every other sport.
I don't see how you can let them play soccer if they don't play football. I mean,
I don't see how you can let them play basketball.
Yeah,
either.
how can you let them play basketball? How can you let them play soccer? How could you let them wrestle? I just don't see how you're going to let them do anything else.
Sports, I mean, you can't. You just can't. I mean, baseball could get away with it, but it comes to the point where then you're going to have students – and you're going to have, obviously, parents and faculty or even coaches that look at it and say, well, you canceled my season, but the baseball season gets to come in still. You canceled basketball, wrestling, football, and women's basketball and all these other sports, but the spring sports get to happen.
Yeah,
I don't. It's just one of those things where I don't know.
I'm looking at
just wait.
I'm looking at the South Carolina numbers, and they're coming down. So I mean, I think South Carolina is heading in the right direction. We're heading down, but not quite as like South Carolina is. And this is.
But Tom, what's the goal? Is it 0 or some? Because you see what I mean?
Yeah.
That they're making the decision without saying what the goal is. Because if you want it 0, then we've got to fight for 0. But we're not having a line like in so if you say those numbers are encouraging, someone else who believes the complete opposite of you will say those are discouraging. We still have cases. There's always one of those. So like what is the deal? Are we getting rid of? So this is what I think. As far as high school and college, if they were smart, they would watch what the pros do. Watch the NBA bubble, watch Major League Baseball, watch the NFL guys in the NASCAR and the golf, and see how they handle it, see how it spreads, and again, how bad is it? If you've got a whole Marlins team get it, not a single one of them goes in the hospital, then you could probably say, well, maybe we could have 4 or 5 kids on a team get it and still play our season. But if people are if the death rate was 50-75%, then you would say, well, nobody needs to get it. But that's my thing is what's the line of if the Marlins come through, like I said, and nobody is really affected at it, that they just had it. I think if the colleges and the high schools would just say, we're going to the spring, we'll figure that out in the next 4 months. Right now, let's get everybody do whatever we need for school, watch the pros, let's use what does and does not work. And Hunter and Tom, some schools, some sports may not play. And whether it's if say the NFL comes back and they can't keep it off people because they're tackling each other, I think the NBA is the best example because they are rubbing up against each other. They're sweating on each other. They're breathing. You can't not do that in basketball. So if you see what happens there, whether there's an outbreak or whether someone gets violently sick or something, I think they should go there. But worrying about the timing of it, I think we can. That ship has sailed. They could have done that in June or whatever. I think.
I'll say this.
But right now, I think they should look maybe to the spring. Go ahead, though.
I'll just say this though. I mean, if it comes, we've been saying this for weeks. Nobody, it seems, in any league can put anything out there on paper that if we hit this number, it's over.
Right.
And now nobody and nobody's doing the same thing as well. If we get the numbers down to this number, it's okay because it would be kind of be irresponsible to say we have to get the numbers down to 0 because we still have a vaccine for the flu, but people get the flu every year. And, 75% of people, even if they get the flu vaccine, it can still, or not 75% of people, it's like 75,000 people still die a year from the flu, and we have a vaccine from it. So it comes down to one of those things where I'm not trying to just say, the coronavirus is just a flu. It is a strain of it, and it's a little bit stronger, but it's one of those things where it's almost unrealistic to say, we can't start back up and can't have these kids go to it's at 0. We can't play these sports if it's at 0 because kids will play football and basketball during prime flu season.
Right.
And if they catch the flu, it's just, hey, you can stay at home.
Well, Tom, it is as far as a lot of this stuff is also colleges and these high schools. They're public institutions, government institutions. So with the travel ball being allowed to pretty much do whatever they do, and they can, I don't know what protocols they have to have or if any.
Depends on where you go.
So my question with that is does that mean, this is a government schools type issue to that's why this is taking so long as far as any of these decisions to be made? Because if the travel ball kids can play baseball at 4 or 8 teams on the field in one day, why can't high school kids play baseball one game on one field in a day? I think that's a big question as far as that. And is that a government cover your ass type thing with lawyers and stuff like that? You know what I'm saying? There's a decision there. Right.
I think eventually that's what you got to. I mean, and who's what rules govern is your guess is as good as mine because when I've done some baseball. I've done some at a private school. I've done some at a charter school.
Okay.
I've done some at Legion parks.
Yep,
but
I've seen public parks full of kids. How about this? There's a public park I drive by sometimes on Sundays where they allow in the baseball, but they have police tape around the bleachers and the playground. So,
no, I saw that in Shelby at their Little League field was full of kids playing Little League. I guess they had just kicked their Little League down and they started up their Little League, and it was some of the biggest crowds I've seen at Shelby Little League in a long time.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of kids aren't playing the travel because they don't,
gotta play something, yeah.
But they want to play something, so a lot of them are playing. Younger kids look like 12-year-olds, had some softball and such.
Hey, boy.
So I mean, I was just riding my bike around town. And I was like, look at this, because the park's been dead all summer, and then all of a sudden it had all these teams out there. So it is difficult to say who's in charge of what. I can tell you, Kevin, that they are letting them play. Like one example is Big League Park in Marion. They do take your temperature. They will not let you inside the facility with a temperature, but they are having various leagues play up there.
How accurate are those like head scanner things? Because they did that to my wife and I at this restaurant we were going in. And I was wondering, I'm like, it's only 110 degrees outside right now. Is there any way this isn't gonna? If you're scanning my forehead, I'm pretty sure it's hot.
Well, I was a kid in the 70s and 80s, and they had various ways to take your temperature that I won't get into right now. But that's a lot less. That's,
way more invasive.
Yeah, way more invasive ways. But this little light to the head thing, mine, when I go to the chiropractor, or if I go to the big league or whatever, it's always the same thing. Mine's always 97.6 if I'm healthy, which I think it's 98.6 is what they say, but there's some variance. So I don't even know.
Hey, the science changes every day.
I don't know what they would say is actually a fever. Is 99 degrees of fever. It's 99.5 or 100. So what is a fever?
Unless it says 100, Tom, don't worry about it. You can shake it off.
Okay. Well,
start from there.
It's just, it's just you're trying to figure out like what is the standard. The problem is there is no standard. There's no standard for anything right now, and it's confusing everybody. And until we, like you make another good point. Like, what do we got to do? Got to get the numbers to zero or flatten the curve. Well, arguably South Carolina's flattening their curve. North Carolina a little bit. New York's is pretty flat. I mean, considering where they were at. I mean, but nobody in the Northeast is doing anything. The Ivy League canceled everything already, a few weeks back. Yeah. So who knows what the standard is? You can't say the standard is the standard with this because there is no standard.
Well, Old Dominion,
nobody can decide what they're doing. That's the problem.
We talked about Old Dominion
Nobody
Saturday.
has a straight decision.
And they canceled Wake Forest is who, remember, they wouldn't play App4 and decided to go play Old Dominion instead. And Old Dominion just announced they're canceling all fall sports. So now that opens back up for Wake. We'll see how if they decide to take that on again. That actually opens up a day also, Tom, for Charlotte. Charlotte plays Old Dominion this year, supposed to. So you guys lost a date on that as well.
Charlotte made up a game with UNC.
Yes,
they will be playing North Carolina this year.
Yes, I did, and we joked. We talked about that last week or so. North Carolina was looking for their one non-conference game.
Oh, right. They got Charlotte.
And I said it wouldn't be at boys, and they're bringing the 49ers into the house. Tom, I will 100% be pulling for you guys in that game.
All right.
And shut those tar holes up down there.
Well, that's your team.
That's not my team.
You're a Carolina
State
fan.
Is my team.
Oh.
I will pull for the Tar Heel basketball team to beat the Duke Blue Devil team every time. But that's where my stand of my loyalty lies right now, and that's about it. They've, I'd say that school's made some bad decisions the last 20 so years. Hunter.
Yes.
You said high school guy you didn't think was going to play. I didn't think either. I think we're going to the spring on these, and I think the sooner they make the decision, then you can just get prepared for it, get your schedules aligned, make the soccer coaches happy or whoever else you got to make happy, and then the kid's going to have to choose. Football to me, and we kind of brought this up with the conference realignments the other day, and maybe not every school needs it or has to have it or should have it. So that and other sports you can kind of think about. I'm not sure what to do because you'd say if for example, if I was playing Bessemer Cherryville, football would probably be the last of the 3 sports we play because we're going to make the playoffs in the other 2. But if I'm not on the field for the football team, it's not like we're going to win if I was there anyway. But it would put a big hole, and I wouldn't be helping my friends and my teammates not being there and stuff like that. So, playing the multiple sports, I kind of worry about some of those guys. But, you just got to play what you can do. Man, I don't know what position I don't know what I would do if all 3 of them were in the spring like that. I would hope baseball could be played in the fall, I believe, Tom.
Oh, yeah. I think they could, definitely. I mean, the weather's good.
Travel ball, the weather's fine in this area.
It would actually be better because it's always 98 degrees in the summertime. I mean,
Right.
So
but you know what the problem is?
Mm-hmm.
Is that they're waiting too long.
Right,
they're just waiting too long. If you wanted to flip-flop baseball and football, you should have done it 2 weeks ago.
Or a month ago, right.
Or a month ago, yeah. You're right. I think that's just what the problem is.
I think the first step should have been, hey, guys, how about let's do this. Non-contact in the fall. In like July, I mean not July, but in June, this is how we're going to do this. We're going to plan for non-contact in the fall, and then we'll adjust from there. If they have to cancel from there to there, then you got your basketball and football already planning for the spring, and then your baseball already planning for the fall. And then instead, like you said, Hunter, we've all went to this kind of the same chronology that we've always had, and it's you can't. I don't think you can look at that based on the contact sports if that's what you're going to try to do is avoid them. And then the fans and that you got that issue. Do you tell mamas and daddies they can't come to games? Yeah. And then do you charge them?
Do you know what's tough too that no one's really talking about when it comes to now that the Big Ten has canceled their season and all these other schools are canceling their seasons? We said it for weeks. What about the guys that needed this season? What about that they needed this season to prove that they were worth a draft pick? That you're talking millions to a couple $100,000s that these guys have never seen before in their life that they've worked hard for 2.5 if they want to leave after their junior year to 3-4 years if they're leaving after their senior year. Like, this was a very important season. Yes, Caleb Farley decided that he wasn't going to play in general, whether they had the season or not. But what about the other guys that were like, yeah, that's okay, I understand that. You're kind of projected as a first-round draft pick. Me, on the other hand, I'm borderline 3rd, 4th, maybe even the 3rd day pick.
Yeah.
Like a 6th or 7th router. And they needed this. Man, they needed this. And I think that's what's so crazy. Sure, this gives the guys maybe an early jump that are guaranteed basically to be draft picks. Like, you can go ahead and start working out now and get prepared for the NFL draft and the combine. But, man, you're talking about hundreds of guys that were just borderline, and now they might not even get a undrafted free agent spot because nobody knows how they were this final season.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. It's just saying that the Big Ten vote was supposedly 12-2, but then somebody from the Big Ten said that there was no vote. So how could you cancel the season without a vote?
I don't even see anything about it, Tom, on the internet.
I saw something about
it.
It
just
vote.
says
the
top 5 are talking about it.
No, this is from the Detroit Free Press said that the Big Ten Conference voted 12-2, but then a spokesman for the Big Ten Conference said no such vote took place. So if no vote took place, how could the season be canceled?
Well, that's what I'm saying. The ESPN's not reporting anything as far as it being canceled at all.
Okay.
It's just saying Power 5 talking about no fall football. So there may have been I bet there was a non-formal vote, you think, maybe? And then somebody leaked it?
Well, then another report said that both the Big Ten and Pac-12, Hunter, got it right, Pac-12, will cancel their seasons Tuesday. So, yeah, maybe this was, what do they call it, the straw poll? To see, okay, how's the vote going to go down?
Yeah.
So, and then the next day, so we're all prepared. We can all go to Aunt Betsy's cupboard and get a little sauced up after it happens because we're going to be depressed, I guess. But it's just, the media is trying to stay ahead of it. But it looks like the official announcement won't come to tomorrow. So I think, Kevin, you're right that it's not official yet.
Okay.
And there's pushback against it, although some media sources are reporting the Big Ten's canceled their season.
Well, can colleges then say if the SEC and the ACC are still going to play that we're going to move from the Big Ten for a season and play in the ACC?
That's
or
what
SEC?
my next question
Yes.
was, if I could freelance. What if I'm Ohio State and I want to go out there and just play some teams?
The answer
Ohio State can compete.
the answer is yes and no. they have a buyout clause for your conference. Okay. Whether that would be able to be enforced at this juncture is not considered. I'm sure you would have lawyers that would come out and say, Tom, if you're this was binding that we were going to play sports. If you guys are saying we're not playing sports, you're not going to sanction them. We should be able to go wherever we want
for a year.
Well, they may be able to go wherever they want. Period. I mean,
but Ohio State has no vested interest in leaving the Big Ten permanently.
Oh no, maybe they do.
Why would they do that?
Hey, bigger
because the SEC
bigger
might
crowds
break off from the NCAA.
Yeah, at some point these conferences, Tom, are going to make one big one, and this is what the Power 5 guys were kind of shooting at when this first started. Was if the NCAA is going to say you guys decide and not push on them, these Power 5 guys can say we're going to pay our guys, and we don't have to be sanctioned by the NCAA. And that's where I was kind of leaning or saying to these high school coaches in North Carolina, you don't have to be a member of the Athletic Association. You can be a member of the Kevin Hastings Athletic Association. Pay me half. I'll divvy it up. Terry said he just needs $500,000 a year. We'll divvy it up between. They divvy up $3 million between 19 people. I bet we could do $2 million within. We'll go 5 of us.
That'd be fine. I could live off it.
But to make schedules and be like, hey guys, yeah, y'all play Tuesday, but yeah, what exactly does the NCAA do? What exactly does the Athletic Association do other than, have coaches meetings and set rules? I'm not 100% sure. And so,
well, the NCAA, right, if I'm not mistaken, I'm just saying the NCAA, if I'm not mistaken, they don't have a president. There is no head honcho over the NCAA because that's what a lot of people.
I think CEO is what the head guy.
Yeah, it's I think it's also kind of like a group. It's almost like a cabinet that they kind of run it from. There is no singular head of leadership like there is in the NFL and the MLB and the NBA where they have the commissioner and he's the one that's over everything. And then of course you have the presidents of the conferences, the presidents of the SEC and the ACC and the Pac-12 and the Big 10, Big 12, and let's not forget there's presidents of all the smaller conferences, but there's no singular head of leadership that just says, okay, this is what we're doing, and everybody has to abide by it. So that's where, to me, if I was the Power 5 conferences, hell, you could literally do what the XFL tried to do. Yeah, you could have your own league.
Right.
You could have your own league. Now, you would have more than obviously just 30-plus schools, but that's not something that you couldn't work around.
It's 50-some schools. We're probably right at 60.
Yeah, it's close. And this is what is crazy too for the NCAA. This has now become a black eye on the NCAA because a lot of people have already been raising a bunch of eyebrows and questions at their antics and how they would suspend kids for almost the smallest thing and what was against NCAA violations. Well, now you have players at all your major conferences, the ones that bring you in the most money, demanding that they have, essentially representation and that they have a voice. And that's what I meant starting at the beginning when I said you're seeing the rise of a players' union right now. And I tell you what, those players outnumber everybody at the NCAA by far. And think about it. We're just talking about the Power 5 conferences. What happens when the Mountain West joins? What happens when the MAC joins? They
won't let them. That's what's going to happen. They're going to start their own 5, and then that'll be the national champion. I mean, you got 64 teams in the basketball tournament anyway.
Well, they probably will let them join when it comes down to that they just won't represent.
They won't even let them participate in the playoffs. They're going to let them join.
No. Here's the thing. They're not.
Ain't no way.
No. I'm not saying that they're joining up to make something different than the NCAA. I'm just talking about they're bucking back at the NCAA saying this needs to change and this needs to happen. So for them to have their largest voice, they need every school that's affiliated with the NCAA behind them, or at least student athletes. That's what I think is going to happen. Because you got to remember, a lot of these kids, they know each other. They all went to 7-on-7s together, and some of them went to play at Power 5 schools, and some of them ended up playing at smaller schools. So they'll all get together, they'll join up and be buddy-buddy, and it will literally be I could see this, if not this year, next year, a huge strike from players. That's just what's going to happen.
So I'm looking,
and they'll lose another couple $1 billion.
I'm looking at Mark Emmert. He is classified as the CEO, president of the NCAA. So it's it's a money making organization here. They're a nonprofit organization.
Yeah.
But he gets this nonprofit, Tom. He makes $3.9 million.
Yeah.
How is that even allowed to be called a nonprofit when the $3.9 million?
It's pretty disgusting, isn't it?
Shit. They've got so here you go. NCAA is and this is, you can read it as the Athletic Association of North Carolina if you want. The NCAA is a voluntary membership association with over 1,100 universities, 19,000 teams, including 460,000 students. The association rules and policies governing college sports are established by all the colleges and universities through a representative form of decision making. So there's your Mark Emmert. So for example of how much, I'm just skipping down a paragraph. Here's some money. They're talking about the 2014, the NCAA entered a partnership with the Department of Defense about concussion and head trauma. Initially a $15 million contribution. Well, if you think about that, The Rock just bought the XFL for $15 million. So what they just got in the first year of the funding, they've got a total now of $64 million in this pool for funding concussion protocol. You could buy 4 XFLs. So, we're getting into the point where just the donation from the Department of Defense could fund the Power 5 football championship. So when they said there's no money and we don't have any money, they're getting money from the Department of Defense. They could buy the XFL 4 times over, which would basically be 4 Power 5 conferences. And there's just so much money in this that they're fighting. I wonder why he gets $3.5 million, Tom, when you're getting 15 a year from the Department of Defense. Just scrolling down through there, talk about the FBI investigations, Michigan State, and the thing with Carolina lawyers basically put a thumb their noses up at them because they said you can't tell us, you're the athletic department, governing body over athletics, you can't tell us what we teach in our classroom. What was North Carolina's basically lawyered argument against them. And then like Hunter's talking about, some schools get penalized and others don't, and what for. So and then when you penalize the school, Tom, if you say your school can't make the playoffs, who's not making the playoffs? The kids. Yeah. that were it's hard to punish the coaches, and the coach can leave and go get another $3.9 million job at another school. So I don't know. They've got a lot of, Hunter, you're right. I've been calling for it for years. Maybe they can, whatever happens, to me, as long as they do something and break up exactly what's going on now, I think we can get down a couple paths. I'm not sure they all the colleges are together under one roof like they are now, called the NCAA, but I'm not sure that's what's even best for them. I mean, should Gardner-Webb be worried about Alabama players and things like that? All right. So,
Tom, I just got something quick to tell you really quick.
Sure.
Scott Frost come out and said for the University of Nebraska, our university is committed to playing no matter what that looks like and how that looks. We want to play no matter what it is or where it is. Someone speculated, one of
Where's
the major
he at?
reporters.
Nebraska.
He is at the University of Nebraska. The team.
The straw poll was Nebraska and Iowa were the only two the teams to say yes.
One of the major reporters, I'm not saying his name, but said this gives credence to the discussion or speculation that some of the Big Ten schools could seek alternative paths to playing in 2022. So, Tom, if Ohio State wants to follow Nebraska and Iowa to go play other teams, hey, this is your opportunity. Go play with the big boys down south.
We've always played. When we won our national championship, we had to beat Alabama. So we've played with the big boys down south.
Come on now.
Forget back in '86 where everybody thought LSU was going to win the national championship and Ohio State beat them. We beat the boys down
until
south.
One of these coaches says, "You don't pay me this year. We'll give it to all the students." These guys coming on saying, "So here's your coach, Tom, swinging as hard as we possibly can right now for these players. This isn't over. #fight." Jay Billis will want to know: does this mean you're fighting the college presidents? Is this going to be on pay-per-view or the Big Ten Network?
Is he fighting them, or is he going to fight Jim Harbaugh?
What I'm saying is, guess who's going to get involved next? The lawyers. Here come the lawyers. That's coming next. Someone's going to sue. Someone's going to get an injunction against this vote. Blah blah
Nebraska and Iowa voted to play. You're right.
I will say this.
Yeah.
I will say this.
See,
Tom,
Kevin just doesn't think I read anything, even though I do.
No, I just want to make sure.
I just
want to make sure I'm 100% right before I say something.
He's not fake news. He is not fake news.
Well, Kevin, I think it was you that said until these coaches start giving up their salaries to start taking care of these players, you don't think he's going to play this year. And that would be the only thing I think keeps some of these teams from playing this year is, in fact, the players basically saying, well, if you're not going to give us representation, we'll just sit out.
The Florida governor, DeSantis, said if the Big Ten schools want to cancel, the SEC and ACC should go after their best players and let them play down here.
Yeah,
no, that would violate all kinds of rules, I'm sure.
Well, Tom, if there are no rules, there are no rules.
I guess.
If the NCAA isn't going to sanction the sports, then there are no rules. Then we'll play the Washington whatever football team you guys are up there.
Football team, do
whether you roll a soccer ball out there or not. We'll
exhibition.
They'll play. I'm going through some of the tweets on here, Tom. I'm trying to see everybody bitching and complaining about it.
I don't think it's over yet, though.
It looks like it's Big Ten and Pac-12 versus the SEC, ACC, and Big 12.
And Big 12 and ACC are on the fence of what the rumor mill has. Because, the ACC does have they have Boston College, they have Maryland, they've got.
We'll trade them out for Nebraska.
I'm just telling you, boys.
Trade who out?
This isn't over.
Trade Boston College out for Nebraska. They both. Nebraska might have more success.
This would have been all made simple, like we said at the start of the show, start of the year. Just put it in the spring, then we won't have to be arguing about this.
Yep.
And then we won't be having to sue each other. Like, they could have went down an easier path.
I think that's the next step, though. Is that not the next logical step? Yeah. Is to go ahead and move it to the spring.
Mm-hmm. They just waited too long, though.
I'm trying to pull up something for you. Somebody had made a comment earlier. I want to make sure they're right on that, too.
You definitely got to, and the reason why I keep saying they waited too long is because you're knocking on the doorstep of when the season should start. Like, come on now. You should have made a decision a month ago, or you're just going to have to cancel it right now.
Since 2000, Ohio State with 2, Southern California with 1.5 championships.
1.5.
Well, it's split. LSU won one vote, and Southern Cal won another vote.
That's right. That's back when they used to vote.
Right. So their point was that if the Pac-12 and Big Ten don't want to play, then who gives a shit, because they're not competing for the championships anyway. Just bring Ohio State and Southern Cal into a conference, and then you're good. That's the only thing you really need to do. I mean, Michigan ain't even beat you on 15 years or something like that. It's getting out of hand with them. It's
what, it's not that like people say, it's not like a rivalry anymore. It still is the game, but it's just. It is nice beating them every single year, I will say.
Think about this, Tom. As far as you're in Cowboys and Redskins fans, like, and Terry, they ain't won anything in 25 years, but to beat the Redskins all the time.
Yeah.
Sorry, Hunter, but they at least had that to brag about. I think you'd have seen more Cowboys fans losing their minds if the Redskins were actually winning titles, and even though the other two have won, that one it's like if your rivalry. Once Michigan starts winning, then that's when Ohio State will look themselves in the mirror and change something.
Yeah,
I would imagine before any of that. All right, guys. Hunter, is anything big news or specific anything come through the web since we've been talking? I know we always seems like we missed something.
Nope. I've been looking. I've been trying to see if there's anything breaking news or not.
So this question that Shannon says, what is he asking? It said if they cancel the Big Ten football season, do the Ohio State football players qualify to receive unemployment?
He's trying to say they're getting paid, even though.
But he doesn't want them to, or believe they should. But they are.
It's sarcasm. Paid. It's sarcasm that he thinks they're getting paid under the table, so now they can get unemployment.
Shit. Well, my question is, do the coaches get unemployment then? I mean, what should the coaches be taking their $8 or whatever $1 million salaries if you're not going to have? Especially at a state-run institution, should those coaches be taking those salaries, especially if they're not going to have a sport? And is that what all this is? All the fighting is actually about? is if what happens to my contract if I don't. I saw one coach, they said he voted for them not to have it. They said that's how you keep your job there, coach. It's not have a season this year. Yeah. If you think you're about to get fired, why wouldn't you vote, hey, we should probably push this back another year? What do you think about that one, Tom?
Yeah, there's so much speculation out there. We'll have to see. I'm sure that even the bad teams still want to play, Kevin. They still want to play.
When we come back next week, we'll be back for
listen to Atlanta Braves baseball on WCSL 1590 AM, 92.3 FM in Cherryville and online at ktcbroadcasting.com. Watch and listen to the Shock Jock Sports podcast on Facebook Live and YouTube.